Chapter 23. Sleep proved as evasive as a fish in reeds, causing Kessa to rise well before the light of day had slapped the sky awake. Delphinia, or Del, as Kessa preferred to call her, was in the kitchen preparing breakfast when she decided to pop in. "Morning, Del." Delphinia glanced up, startled. "Morning, miss. Didn't expect you up so early." "I didn't sleep well. Mind if I have a dish of whatever it is that smells so good?" "Certainly, miss. Since it's you, I was planning to let it cook for a little, but you can help yourself. I know Lord Aguilon means well by sending out the other servants, but my goodness if it hasn't made for a harried existence here at the castle. If you need nothing else, miss, I have some other things to get to." "Anything I can do to help?" Delphinia smiled gratefully. "Sweet of you to offer, miss. I'm fine. Eat." Kessa obliged, gobbling her food faster than ever since she wanted to avoid meeting anyone else that morning. "Del, if they ask, please tell the others I've gone for a ride. I want to visit some old haunts of mine." She stopped, fearing she was giving too much information. "Just tell them I'll be back before dinner, if they even miss me." Delphinia's blue eyes peered at her shrewdly. "Afore dinner, miss? That's hours from now. You really mean to be gone so long?" Kessa seized a hunk of buttered bread for later. "Thanks, Del. Bye." Rushing toward the stable, Kessa jerked to a sudden halt. An imposing figure blocked her path. Malleus looked at her like a wolf eyeing vulnerable prey. Or maybe he was smiling. She couldn't tell. Reflexively, taking a step back, she tripped over a jutted rock. Regaining her balance, but not her composure, she pivoted, ready to chastise Malleus for startling her. However, her opportunity, along with her brother-in-law, had disappeared. Shaking her head cynically, Kessa continued with her plans. Twilight was dusting the sky with deep blues, pinks, and oranges when she returned from gallivanting. Equestria, a couple of her old friends, and Pantheus were in the midst of dinner. Malleus and Quinn were absent, although plates had been set out for them. "Ah, there you are, Kessa," Equestria said. While everyone else welcomed her, Pantheus called for her food. He said nothing while the others commented on how much she'd grown and reminisced with wicked smiles about the trouble she'd habitually instigated. Gradually, the reminiscing shifted to other topics, and as she ate, Kessa caught a look from Pantheus. It was the first sign he'd acknowledged her presence since requesting her dinner, but it wasn't the type of acknowledgement she craved. The look was icy. It sent a shiver down her spine, making it difficult to do anything other than pretend she hadn't noticed. After the last of their company departed, Kessa was about to confront her host on his behavior toward her when he abruptly announced, "Forgive me, ladies, but I must retire now. I hope you sleep well. I'll see you in the morning before you leave. Good night." "Good night, Pantheus," Equestria said, slanting a look toward her sister. Kessa watched him leave, and then without a word went off to her bedroom. Quinn awoke her the following morning, informing her it was time to go. She ate another breakfast alone as the others prepared to depart. Having packed up the night before, she was ready to leave as soon as she finished eating. After thanking Delphinia for everything, she met the others in the courtyard. Tossing her bag over Celeste rather recklessly, causing the mare to shuffle in alarm, Kessa leapt into the saddle. She was so engrossed in her own feelings that she didn't even notice the prisoner or the barred wagon he was crouching in. Nor did she notice her brother-in-law sitting in the driver's seat watching her cryptically. Refusing to look at Lord Aguilon, she murmured a frosty farewell and a rather sarcastic, "Thank you for your hospitality." She tapped her heels against Celeste's ribs, but the mare didn't budge. Pantheus was holding the bridle. "Kessa, he said, his voice low and urgent. Her furious glare met his, and whatever he was about to say died on his lips. Letting go of the bridle, he stroked Celeste's nose and substituted a wish for Kessa's health and safety. Her gaze softening a little, Kessa nodded curtly, before spurring Celeste to a trot and leaving the courtyard. When Equestria caught up, opening her mouth to say something, Kessa declared, "I shouldn't have come to Aquina." She looked fiercely at her sister, her eyes glossy with unshed tears. "Next time, count me out." Kessa urged Celeste to a quicker pace, and Equestria, a frown creasing her pretty brow, didn't pursue. Exhaustion overwhelming her, Kessa slumped against Celeste's neck, barely able to keep her eyes open. Anxious and riled, but mostly hurt by Pantheus's behavior toward her, she hadn't slept well at the castle. Now, only a mere 4 hours into their 2-day journey, her body was punishing her for that lack of sleep. Her sister's hand pushing her was enough to rouse her. "You were about to fall out of the saddle," Equestria explained, glancing incredulously at her husband. "We'll take a brief respite at the village 20 kilometers up the road," Malleus informed them. "Miss Decora can nap there, if she wishes." "I don't need a nap," Kessa snapped. Her belligerence was born out of embarrassment. She hated appearing needy or weak, particularly around her sister and Fane. "Shall we tie you to your horse, then?" Malleus suggested. "Just to be sure you don't fall off." He gestured toward the wagon with a bob of his head. "Or, there's plenty of room in there. I'm sure Augustus would love the company." Equestria smirked at him. "Stop teasing." Not as amused as her sister, Kessa gave Malleus an unimpressed glance and slowed Celeste until she trailed behind the wagon. This wasn't the most brilliant of plans. Augustus scooched against the back bars of his prison and ogled her cheekily. Try as she might to avert her glance, something about the criminal kept her baby blues returning to him. It wasn't his rugged good looks, complete with intelligent brown eyes, straggly auburn hair, and matching goatee. Nor was it the fact that he was leanly muscled and garbed in a ripped tunic and pants that showcased this. Certainly, Kessa noticed these characteristics, but it was likely the roguish quality to his aura that drew her in the most. She'd always had a soft spot for deviants. Finishing her initial critique, Kessa endeavored, with increased zeal, to keep her eyes on the scenery. Too much eye contact with a man like Augustus might be hazardous to her health, to her sanity at least. And she didn't want to like him. He'd threatened and wounded Pantheus. Eventually, despite her lack of attention, Augustus wrapped his fingers around the bars and struck up a conversation. "Kessa Decora." He paused, allowing the fact that he knew her name to sink in. "Keeping company with the dungeon keeper? Are you sure that's wise?" Snorting, she replied, "You know my name. So what? An imbecile could have figured out that much." "And I know your type." Pleased to have some diversion from the monotony of their journey, Kessa didn't want to admit she was flattered that he'd investigated her, at least enough to learn her name. "Ha! Enlighten me." "Right at home with the likes of me," he grinned. "Our reputations precede us, you know." "Hardly," Kessa scoffed. "Before my trip to Aquina, I'd never heard of you." He acted wounded. "Ouch." "Fair enough, but I have heard of you." "All right, I'll play along. Let's see how good at lying you really are." Augustus went on to list Kessa's misdeeds, pranks, and rabble-rousing to an extent where she couldn't help being impressed. He finished with, "And you stole Lord Aguilon's horse." "Child's play," Kessa admitted with a chortle. "Impressive, thief, but all common knowledge. Try harder." "Play the innocent, Miss Decora. I'd expect nothing less." Peering over at Malleus, Quinn, and Equestria, he saw that they were occupied in a conversation of their own, and leaned further forward, whispering, "I know you have a secret you'd do pretty much anything to keep, especially from your family." A frown creasing her brow, Kessa observed the man in the cage anew. He was far more dangerous than she'd first anticipated. Crafty, indeed. If she wasn't careful, he'd read her like an open book. "Would you like a worm to go with that hook?" she asked, sagaciously furrowing her brow. Unsatisfied with her unrevealing response, Augustus let go of the bars and sat back. "Just imagine the mischief we'd achieve if we joined forces, Decora." He winked at her, charmingly, as Celeste sped up with a gentle prod of Kessa's heel. Although the dialogue was intriguing, it was becoming far more dangerous. "Think about it, my lovely," he suggested as she passed. She glanced back at Augustus just as Equestria sidled up next to her and cautioned, "You shouldn't be speaking with criminals." Trying not to sound overly waspish, Kessa said, "I seriously did not know that." Equestria continued, "Particularly ones as manipulative and deceitful as him." Pantheus obviously distrusted him enough to summon Malleus to transport him, and that says an awful lot. What says more is that Malleus obliged. Feeling like getting even for being teased earlier, Kessa commented, "Could one so attractive really be that bad? I'm tempted to let him out, just to find out. It'd be some excitement in an otherwise tedious journey, and we'd get to see your hubby in action. I'm sure he'd appreciate a chance to demonstrate those legendary skills." "I doubt you'd appreciate it when Malleus locks you up with the criminal, too," Equestria said, with a twinkle in her eye. "Oh, I don't know. Maybe Augustus isn't the only one who'd enjoy some company." A skyward roll of her eyes was Equestria's only response. Kessa suppressed a smirk. She loved getting under her sister's skin. "Methinks Malicious isn't the only one adept at teasing." "Don't call him that, Kessa." And just like that, their conversation ended, leaving an uneasy tension simmering between the two of them. Kessa was relieved when the tiny village where Malleus said they would stop came into view. "I'll ride ahead and have a nap, shall I?" Having no intention of waiting for an answer, she urged Celeste into a gallop. Seeing Celeste and Ryder rush past, Malleus rotated in his saddle to look curiously at his wife. She shrugged her shoulders and spurred her horse back to his side. Curled up under a magnificent oak tree, the best thing this village had to offer, Kessa slept, when an inexplicable shadow blanketed her mind. Her brow creased curiously at the phenomenon. That was powerful enough to wake her. Her eyes blinked open to see Malleus standing only a meter away. Startled and unnerved, she jolted upright. "Time to leave," Malleus announced unapologetically. Turning on his heel, picking herself up off the ground, she peered around waiting for her heart rate to return to normal. At least she didn't need to worry about grogginess. Augustus, standing much farther back, had watched the exchange with lazy interest. He wasn't bound by any means, but he didn't try to escape. Kessa supposed the dungeon keeper's reputation was so imposing and intimidating that his prisoners would rather face Cyrene's dungeon than risk angering or inconveniencing its keeper. "Have you thought about my proposition?" Augustus asked in a hushed tone as they followed Lord Fane. "What proposition is that?" He looked genuinely wounded. "Join me. Help me escape." She glanced at her brother-in-law ahead. She wondered what he was thinking. Could he overhear their conversation? Wasn't he concerned at all about leaving the prisoners so unsupervised? Wouldn't it be simple for Augustus to just slip away? As if reading her mind, Augustus shook his head. "Suicide," he said, confirming what Kessa had been thinking earlier about Malleus's reputation. "His guard's up. Whether it looks like it or not, he'd squash me like a bug if I spread my wings now." "I'm pretty sure those wings of yours are permanently clipped, Augustus." "Momentarily bound. You could release them, though." "If you need a little girl like me to escape, then you're not the crafty criminal everyone gives you credit for." Augustus bristled. "I don't need you." "Oh, I see. I help you escape, and then you crown me queen of your criminal empire. Is that it?" "Why not? You'd look stunning with a crown." "And equally stunning with my crowned head on a spike, right?" Kessa laughed unpleasantly. "You really don't know who I am, do you? If you did, you'd know I won't fall for such drivel." For a fraction of a minute, Augustus's shoulders slumped feebly. Then a roguish smirk appeared and he stood taller. "More like you don't know me, Blondie. You admitted as much yourself. I don't leave things to chance. You'd be singing a different tune if you knew what I have cooked up for later." "If you were that sure of yourself, Augustus, you wouldn't be propositioning me." "Is that what you think?" "Nope. I'm just giving you an opportunity. From one entrepreneur to another. From an admirer to the admired. I've got connections. Connections that could aid you in the future, or perhaps hinder you. Maybe even reveal that deep secret of yours." Kessa struggled to keep her patience. Her nap hadn't helped her sour mood much. Thanks, but no thanks. Augustus was good at reading people, playing on their fears, insecurities, and vanities, but she wasn't born yesterday. And despite his very convincing act, she believed he was as helpless as a caged bird and as ignorant of her secret as the average citizen. If anything, he probably suspected she was a thief. He wasn't alone in that. And just like the clever manipulator he was betting on exploiting her fear of being discovered as a thief. Or maybe he was hoping to appeal to her love of adventure and mischief. Perhaps both. Augustus shrugged, mock concealing his disappointment. "Suit yourself." "Suiting yourselves is something you two do have in common," Malleus said suddenly, leaving the pair wondering how long he'd been eavesdropping. "You're both pros at it. Now, get in your cage, Mr. Crow," he ordered, opening the wagon's door. Augustus's mouth dropped open at the use of his surname, which he was positive he hadn't disclosed in a very long time. He crawled into the wagon submissively and refused to look at either of them. Momentarily musing on what it was about the dungeon keeper knowing his last name that so rattled Augustus, she switched to wondering, "Where's Equestria and Quinn?" "Looking for you," Malleus answered. "I found you first." Under her breath, Kessa said, "Lucky me." "Indeed." Malleus followed this statement with his signature elevation of an eyebrow. "Saved you from an angry lecture." and we both know you prefer to avoid those." Kessa gaped at him. Not only was she mortified he'd overheard her "lucky me" comment, but she was shocked by his response as well. "But then, perhaps you'll still get the lecture after all." He motioned toward Equestria stalking toward the wagon, then climbed into the driver's seat. Quinn in her wake, Equestria entered earshot, her brow crinkled just as it always was when she was on the verge of giving Kessa a stern reprimand. Inhaling through her nose, Equestria opened her mouth to begin speaking when, "We must move at a quicker pace until the sun sets. Then we'll make camp for the night." Had Malleus just come to Kessa's rescue? Or was he really just in a hurry? Maybe that was the reason for the impending lecture. Kessa had held them up. Concerned by the urgency in her husband's voice, Lady Fane skipped the lecture and hopped into her saddle. Her reasons for wanting to lecture her sister would be left a mystery,